Welcome back to the Inside the Rink podcast. In episode 35, we will cover Lou Lamoriello will not be renewed with the New York Islanders. Greg Cronin was fired as the Anaheim Ducks head coach. Peter Laviolette and Phil Housley fired in New York or with the New York Rangers. Seattle makes a flurry of changes to their coaching and front office, and some playoff predictions / talk. But first, I want to welcome my co-host, Chris Lavallee. Chris, how are you doing today?
Oh, this beautiful weather we got here in New England, it's just making my mood so much better.
It must be better than rain.
Oh, it's beautiful. 70, I think it was 72 today. I mean, you can see I'm in a tank top, so the 70s hit, and that's where we're at.
Okay, well, must be nice, like I said, for that kind of weather. Sun has been shining here, but like I said, rain today, and it's kind of the in-between of the playoff atmosphere down in Manitoba. So there's a lot to get through today, Chris. But like with the opening few days, I should say, actually, not the past few days, the opening few days of the 2025 Stanley Cup Playoffs, it's been electric. There's been a lot of actually pretty good discourse, I find, regarding officiating, things like that. But kind of getting into the whole scope of the lens, I don't want to spoil a whole lot. I'd like to hear a word from our sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook.
DraftKings Sportsbook is Boston's hometown sportsbook. It's live right here in Massachusetts. Bet local on all your favorite sports from the comfort of your own home with DraftKings. To celebrate, all new customers will receive up to $150 in bonus bets when you sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook using code ITR. You can now bet local on money lines, spreads, props, and more with one of America's top-rated sportsbooks. That's DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Sign up with the code ITR to get up to $150 in bonus bets to use now that mobile sports betting is live in Massachusetts. That's code ITR only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
If your loved one is experiencing problems with gambling, call 800-327-5050 or visit helplinema.org to speak with a trained specialist free and confidentially 24/7. Must be 21 plus, physically present in Mass. Eligibility restrictions apply, subject to regulatory licensing requirements. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as free bets. Terms at DraftKings.com/MA.
Oh my gosh. Chris, it feels like we're in two different complete worlds when it comes to the viewership standpoint. In one atmosphere, 16 teams are completely in off-season mode, while 16 more are like they're out like elbow grease in playoffs right now. And one team that was so close to the playoffs but couldn't quite get to that mark were the New York Islanders. And earlier today, it came out that they will not be renewing the contract of longtime NHL executive and Hall of Famer in the builder category. Lou Lamoriello will not return to the New York Islanders as president and general manager. And it's a long awaited change that needed to happen with the organization. And it's no disrespect to Lamoriello, but you can see just there's a lot of things starting to catch up, and it became abundantly clear that maybe his philosophy wasn't starting to stick with the younger guys in the league, or maybe it was time for him to take a different role. And you look like you got something to say about that.
I just feel like it has a lot more to do with like the aspect of what he didn't do at the deadline. Like they didn't really I could see them as a team. We talked about it, I think, when we talked about the deadline a little bit, as a team that was right there, could add and also like sell at the same time, like that, not rebuild but a retool. And it really seems like he did nothing but sell. I mean, Brock Nelson was traded. I'm trying to think am I forgetting anybody else that was traded by them? But that's a piece that, you finish just outside of the playoff spot. That if you have Brock Nelson, look at him in Colorado right now in the playoffs, that could have that been a one player that you still have in your lineup that gets you to that point to get over the hump and you were that last wild card team. Because like we talked about 2 weeks ago, even last week, really, it came down right to the wire for the last playoff spot.
And that's certainly the case. I agree with you that maybe Nelson could have been the piece that helped get him over the hump, but I feel like we're going to say this a lot in the offseason as it approaches, and the dog days of the offseason it's only getting closer, Chris. But hindsight is always 2020, and that's with everything. And that's more clear in the offseason, I find, because you could say, oh, a team should have done X, Y, and Z at the trade deadline, at free agency, at the draft, but who knew that, say, Ivan Demidov was going to be pack such a punch in his debut game for Montreal. And I think that's a hindsight of like 2020, but he's still top 5 caliber talent. But it's still hindsight because of the fact when maybe he goes to San Jose and he just doesn't gel whatsoever, and everybody saying, why did San Jose pick him, X, Y, and Z, that sort of thing.
Back-to-back losses in the first round doesn't help either. And then obviously this season you don't make the playoffs. So like clearly what you were doing isn't working, and it's time for for a different direction to see if they can build something, I think, that gets them back into the playoffs and even a further run, because he did have, I believe it was his second season, they reached the conference finals.
And they did that in back-to-back seasons. The only reason I remember that is they faced Tampa in the Eastern Conference Finals in back-to-back seasons when Tampa went on to win the Cup in back-to-back years. So there was a bit of animosity between those two teams, those two years, because I believe both of the games that Tampa advanced on were overtime winning games. But you're at the situation where 7 years, that's a long time. Like, he started with the New Jersey Devils all the way back in 1985 until like 2015 or so, around the Matthews area, sometime in that ballpark, before he went to the Islanders in 2017. And that's a long, long time for somebody to be in the game. And another thing about Lamoriello, but I just want to end on this thought, Chris. When you have notable figures like Brian Burke, who played under Lou Lamoriello when Lamoriello was a coach, I think that's the longevity that is being that we're speaking about when it comes to Lamoriello. And the change, like I said, it's necessary, and maybe it's a culture thing that moves forward, where it's not a relic of the past, but something they can look fondly on, but they needed to make the change ultimately.
Yep.
Speaking of a team that made a change, admittedly, I was kind of surprised at this. That was the Anaheim Ducks firing head coach Greg Cronin. Chris, you and I both know that Anaheim is kind of getting out of a rebuild. They're in the I want to say they're in the awkward stage of they could be a good team, but they're not quite there yet. They're the middle of the pack, getting out of that rebuild, like the transitionary phase.
They have the pieces. I mean, they were right there. I mean, what was it? Right after the deadline, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks after, I kept bringing them up as a team to worry about come playoff race time in the conversation. And then obviously they fell off a little bit towards the end there, and then they were eliminated. But they have the pieces. Now, I didn't look it up and see who was around, like who's long term aside from the young core they do have. But like I said, there's pieces there to build something that maybe it's time, a new voice to get them over that hump and get them back in the playoffs.
Yeah, and Anaheim being in the position that they're in, they have room to bring in better or more experienced talent to their roster. Like, they're, without a doubt, they're right on the cusp, like you were kind of alluding to there. They're on the cusp of becoming that competitive team, and maybe a free agent signing is what needs to happen. And in the case of Greg Cronin, I think it was a firing that, like, hey, you're kind of here to do this job, but maybe there was a bit of animosity when it comes to the long-term future, because you can see it time and time again Look at Laviolette and the Rangers, which we'll get to in a minute. Look at the long-term outlook of coaches getting in between these phases. They might not meet expectations. Maybe Verbeek and Cronin sat down and they, you know what, here's the expectations that you have year to year. And maybe it's something that nobody sees on surface level except for the team, where it is an expectation-based thing. And Chris, you were kind of getting at it with the wild card spot there, right there, but they couldn't really punch their way in. And I think we're going to start. I think when it comes to teams getting from these wild card spots, we're going to see more. I don't want to say ruthlessness, but we're going to see more expectation based firings. That's the word. Expectation based firings, all that sort of stuff.
The Ducks are also a team to watch in the offseason with what they do moves wise. Because realistically, Dostal, and I talked about this when we were talking about the wild card, took over that number one spot in net for them. That I think now with what's happened, it's made Gibson expendable. That you might see a trade made with him, whether it's for a draft pick or for a player or something to make the team better. But that's definitely something I think that you need to watch this offseason. They're going to get a new voice. They're going to make some moves. And I think they're definitely a team to watch next season with another year of experience for guys like Zegras and Terry and McTavish, right? Did I butcher that one?
McTavish.
Yeah. So some names to watch. I mean, they get the pieces, and they're a fun team to watch. Like they we'll get to another team that I like to watch late night, but they're another team that I would tune in late night throughout the season if I was awake. And I expect the same thing again from them next year.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head for pretty much the whole point there. Another coach firing, and it came in the same day. Peter Laviolette, head coach of former head coach of the New York Rangers, and Phil Housley, one of the assistants, both they're gone. Chris, this is one that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. The Rangers, on paper, are a better team than, well, as you and I are seeing. Like, they should not have missed the playoffs. Like, there was no reason. Like, they had just an absolute tire fire of a season, and I could say a lot about Vancouver and their season, but the Rangers, you go from threatening to put your captain on waivers if he doesn't accept a trade or waive his no trade clause. Like, how do you recover from something like that? And then Laviolette, when he does get fired, this is not too long after the whole stuff with Calvin DeHaan and all of that debacle. But like, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and I saw a lot of coverage from Rangers fans and even a couple of media people that maybe it's a culture thing coming right down from Chris Drury, where that's a whole other can of worms to open as well. So you could argue that maybe the coaching change was the direction they needed to go into, similar to Anaheim, but
a lot of things going on there. A lot of things.
How do you go from winning the President's Trophy to missing the playoffs the next year? Like,
and you add, I mean, not for nothing, they added somebody like JT Miller. Like, they got better on paper throughout the season.
You added a true gamer to your lineup.
And thankfully, I mean, Quick's re-signed there, so they do have the backup goalie situation taken care of. So, to me, it's just I was shocked. I think I said it 2 weeks ago that I thought they were going to make the playoffs over Montreal, and then they fell off again. And I think that opened the door to let Laviolette go.
Yeah, that the Rangers season at the end there, part of me was wanting them to get in and just see the chaos it creates in playoffs, but the other part of me was like, what happens internally if they don't? And I think you can ask that question for a lot of teams, but here we are, or here the teams are. We got all 16 teams duking it out right now, and then the 16 teams, I guess, duking it out in the offseason, if you want to put it that way. The Rangers, though, it's going to be quite an interesting offseason, considering, like, you got a head coaching search now, and maybe you have to attract a free agent or two, but with the whole DeHaan comments and everything that's kind of circling right now, which I think that's going to be a developing thing over the next few weeks. But with the way that the Rangers are kind of going right now, maybe it could be a tough off season for them.
That's kind of what I'm wondering.
So, and finally, the last of the coaching changes. This came yesterday. Dan Bilesma fired after one season in Seattle. And Ron Francis gets promoted to president of hockey operations, while Jason Botterill was named the general manager of the team. So quite a number of changes in the land of Seattle, Seattle Kraken. This, honestly, the Bilesma firing is the one I don't like of everything.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. One season, and that's it. I get they weren't good, but one season is all you give the guy, and he's gone. When I came across my phone yesterday, it was a head scratcher. I'm like, what are they doing over there?
Well, it's like down over here in Canada, we're in the midst of a federal election just coming up right away, but that nothing to do with that. But I was on my way to go take care of some errands related to all of that, and it popped up on my phone, and my jaw dropped that Bilesma was the first of the three dominoes to go, and they promoted Ron Francis after, I don't know if you want to call it bad seasons, but it less than ideal is what I'd like to label his time as GM. Yes, he still has a lot of say in that sort of stuff as president of hockey operations, is above that GM spot. But Botterill, coming from Pittsburgh, he was a GM of Wilkes-Barre forever, went to Buffalo around the Eichel era, I believe right after the time they actually drafted Eichel, and now he was assistant GM in Seattle before his promotion. So
I would love a nice, because they're in the same division, be a slap in the face. What if the Ducks just hired Dan Bilesma? And then they make the playoffs to make a run?
Honestly, you can never say never, and Bilesma not getting his shot to really run with things, because that's, to me, coming from the perspective where, Chris, you and I religiously watch a lot of hockey, and systems aren't built in one season. If you look at a lot of coaches, say John Cooper in Tampa Bay, he built systems over time. He's been he's won 2 Stanley Cups, been to a third consecutive one, and didn't win the third one, but still had a system in place.
Not for nothing, he lost his captain this offseason. They're back in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And Tampa is a team, I've said personally that, they're going to continue, they're going to fall off this year. This has to be the year they fall out, but they don't fall out. Look at Jared Bednar in Colorado. That's another great example of a coach who has such a deeply rooted system in the team. And it's also a lot of belief in the coach. And Chris, Bilesma getting canned in Seattle, like I said, move I don't like, and Botterill becoming GM, okay, fine. Obviously, you had it in mind for him to become the GM at some point, when he was a former GM, he was a GM at one point with another franchise. The one other move I don't like, and it's a little, doesn't leave as sour of a taste in my mouth, is the Ron Francis promotion. And just, Chris, it's mainly because of the hit and miss record of Ron Francis to this point. The whole expansion draft, it hasn't been smooth sailing for them like it has been for Vegas.
He must have ideas that they just like, and that's what led to this. He must have some vision. I don't know. It's all a mess to me.
And that's exactly what I think it might be. I don't want to say yes or no, but he's got to have some great input or something incredibly valuable that they just can't let go. So,
realistically, their downfall during the regular season came number one, Grubauer struggled in net. That was a big one for them, but they did lose. To me, watching the play, Chandler Stevenson was one of their best players this season. And losing him, he was out for a period of time in that stretch of trying to make that playoff spot. Not having him was another tough loss that that's why to me the Bylsma firing is just shocking.
Yeah. And like I don't think they set a roadmap, or they as in the Seattle Kraken franchise. I don't think they set a true roadmap with Bylsma as a head coach for the team long term. And I think we're seeing the effects of that now. So, Chris, playoff hockey is finally here. There's 8 current matchups, obviously, as it's round 1. The first in the East, the Battle of Ontario, Toronto, and Ottawa. Historically, Toronto has won all of the series between Toronto and Ottawa. And this one looks like it could continue to be that. It looks like it can. Wow. It looks like it could continue to be that direction. And maybe Ottawa shows some life. But Chris, I'm thinking Toronto is going to take this series in 5.
I'm kind of there with you. I've debated 4 or 5,
Yeah.
but I think it is 5. I mean, although right now it's 2-0 in game 2, they just started the second period, but yeah, I think Ottawa takes 1 at home, and then Toronto wins the series at home.
Yeah, I'm thinking gentleman's sweep kind of deal where I don't want to say you let the team have one, but the team, like your opposing team, takes a game and you close it out in the 5th.
They just look so much better than Ottawa.
I was watching game
4.
1. I was watching game 1. Sorry,
No,
and just the way that the Leafs pounced on the power play and playoffs. I want to get this out of the way right away. It's very physical and hard hitting, and I think that rings in every single piece I've written so far. But the other thing is special teams are make or break, because if you cannot out hit the other team and defend your zone well, your penalty kill is going to have a hard time.
one of their 2 goals tonight is also on the power play.
Yep. And it was 18 seconds into Artem Zub's minor. So, and that also goes to show, like, your 4 power play goals that you have scored have come in 20 seconds or less for each goal.
I don't know how long tonight's was, unless you know, but
18 seconds.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. And I only know that off the top of my head as I was looking at the power play, and I was actually I was going to tweet about it and break it down, but didn't have enough time with some schoolwork there. But this Leafs Senators series, it intrigues me because Stolarz has everything to prove, but nothing to lose for Toronto. Whereas the Leafs have everything to lose because of that. Oh, they can't make it out of the first round deal, or 1967, that sort of thing. So that's why I think Stolarz, like, if you put him in, you give him the confidence, he could be what you ride. Or maybe Joseph Woll goes on a hot streak. I've said forever, goalies are voodoo.
Yeah.
So, and
the other thing for Ottawa, like, no matter what happens in this series, they're a young team that has been, for years, it's been Buffalo, Detroit, and Ottawa as the teams talked about being rebuilt, and that should eventually take over that division when Tampa, Florida, Boston, Toronto all fall off. But now Ottawa, as a Red Wings fan, Ottawa takes over that leap of they have the playoff experience now. Whether they lose in 4 or 5, they're going to have all those guys that are on that roster are now going to have the experience. So It's another big boost to them compared to Buffalo and Detroit when they do get there.
Yeah, and just looking at the Senators, like you're saying, is young team, but you also have some pretty veteran pieces in that lineup. Claude Giroux, Linus Ullmark, like there are good pieces in that lineup who can help you. But they I think first, like, look at the Leafs. You've been in it for how many years consecutively? Even in a losing scenario, you're still building. You're still getting some war wounds in there, some battle wounds. And I think that's ultimately what it's going to come down to for Ottawa. And once they do get a good core intact, and I could see them being a pretty scary team 2 to 3 years time come playoffs. But right now it's Leafs and 5 for me, and my bracket it doesn't even nudge with any of the games played.
Yeah. I think I'm right there too. I'd have to look again.
Yeah. Chris, Tampa and Florida, Battle of Florida. This is one that interests me because Tampa, I didn't even have them written in to make the playoffs this season.
Yeah,
so
I didn't either.
And I think it's mostly in part of them losing their captain and looking at their lineup on night one. So
expecting a step back from Vasilevsky.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors into it, and like an aging core, lose your captain, like you say, Vasilevsky taking or might have taken a step back, but he hasn't. He's been pretty dominant all through the season, and playoffs. This series starts tonight, actually, so maybe it's a lovely curse on Vasilevsky now, but
I'm going Panthers in 6.
You're saying Panthers in 6, eh?
Yep.
So I'm so hesitant on this series, and I think Tampa and Florida is it's going to be one of the two bloodbaths for me that come out of this Eastern Conference, solely because of the absolute hatred we've seen on the ice between Tampa and Florida, and also great goaltending and a lot of great defensive systems in place by Tampa and John Cooper. Cooper's been with the team or been with the Lightning obviously a lot longer than Paul Maurice has been with Florida, but Florida coming off of 2 consecutive Stanley Cup finals run, having one last season. For me, this is Tampa in 7. That sets up that Toronto-Tampa matchup, which that's a series that regardless that's must-watch TV because of the Stamkos Matthews fight a couple of seasons ago and just all the animosity in that case. But getting to the whole Tampa thing is Vasilevsky, once he's on his game, and that Toronto series where they lost in 6 games, that came after they had traded Ryan McDonough away. And here we are. You have Tampa Bay, who has Ryan McDonough back. It's his first playoff run since returning. And he's a notorious shot blocker in front of Vasilevsky. And every game I've turned on when Tampa is playing, McDonough throws his body on the ice. And it's like he has absolutely no care as long as the puck does not end up in the back of the net. So I think that's going to be a massive factor defensively, but you got to look at their lineup. Bjorkstrand got injured. You have a couple of other things might be lingering because playoffs, like I said, are hard hitting. And I just think Tampa, given their current structure, and Florida going on such a long run for 2 consecutive seasons, it's going to wear in Florida. And that's why, for me, Tampa is going to go over that hump.
I like the depth on Florida. That's what makes me say Florida. Is I like the fact that you can put somebody like Brad Marchand on the 3rd line, and you know you have Nico Sturm and Evan Rodriguez on. That's your bottom. That's 3 guys on your bottom 6 that can score, can put the puck in the net, and can make plays on the ice. So I mean, and let's not forget that after I think it is either Game 3 or after Game 3, they get Aaron Ekblad back, who's well rested.
Yeah.
That's a nice blue line piece to add, whether you're down 2-1. I mean, if they're down 3-0, then it is what it is. But, down 2-1, up 2-1, up 3-0, getting Aaron Ekblad back, fresh, that's a big boost to a team.
I think this series is going to be win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1.
Yeah.
It's just the way that Tampa and Florida have beat the hell out of each other in previous series and games is maybe even 6 games, but I'm sticking to Tampa in 7.
I flirted with 7. I think both teams have the offensive scoring, but like I said, I think with the talent on the bottom 6 for Florida and getting Ekblad back fresh, that gives them a boost where they could win. What game is he back? Game 3 or is it game 4?
It's one of the two. I'm not quite sure.
If he's back game 3, I think they could, even if it's 1-1, they win game 3 and 4, lose 5 and win 6. If he's back game 4, I could see them winning 3 straight with that boost.
Yeah.
That's why I stick with 6.
All right. The third of the 4, Washington and Montreal, and this is technically a 1 versus 8 matchup, all the things considering, but this is one where I can see it being Capitals in 6.
Montreal played them tough game 1, which is kind of surprising to me. I debated 5-6, but now I could lean. I'm leaning more 6-7, but I'm agreeing with you on Washington.
I don't see this series going. I don't see it going 7 solely off the fact that Montreal, one being a very inexperienced team in the playoffs versus a team that they came into the season and their only expectation was to help Alex Ovechkin break the goal scoring record. Where they are in the standings was just a nice addition to everything. It was a nice bonus. These guys, they're competitive and they don't want to lose. They're hockey players like Chris. Montreal being out of the playoffs for so long and this being their first run in, like Ottawa, I think inexperience is going to catch up to them. I can see them picking a game or 2 off of Washington, maybe a home game.
That's probably it.
And if they take a home game, that could sway way in a favor. But when I was making my bracket and all that, I can't see it going past 6, and that's why I chose Capitals in 6.
I'm probably right there. Capitals in 6. I know I get Capitals no matter what, but Capitals probably in 6 makes the most sense.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of brackets being posted online, and I saw somebody say, "Oh, Habs in 5," and it's like, well, they dropped the first one. Now you got 4 straight, and never say never. But the one thing about Washington is they are built for playoffs, and now you got the goaltending duo locked up between Thompson and Lindgren. You have a lot of pretty good pieces in Chychrun, Dubois, Ovechkin. Yes, he's aging, broke the goal scoring record, and he's got it all for himself. You got Tom Wilson as well, just the right pieces in to make a run if they want to, and that's why I'm saying that. And Chris,
does the Verhaeghe injury sway you at all?
No. Is just the way that everything shapes up. Washington just has they have the team that is, like I said, built for playoffs. They'll hit the hell out of you and just they'll wear you down pretty quickly. So that's why I say that. And finally, in the Eastern Conference, New Jersey and Carolina. And well before game 1 started, I had it locked in. Hurricanes in 4. I looked at this. New Jersey it seems like right now that they don't know where to find that line of making sure they're a playoff team and they have faced that adversity heading in. Because it seems like they'll go on a bad stretch, but then they have a good stretch and they don't have anything where they got to go into the trenches as a team. That's kind of what I feel like with New Jersey. And Sheldon Keefe coming in, yes, he didn't have a lot going for him with injuries and such, but you're in a situation where you got to compete. And that's why I say Hurricanes in 4.
I'm with you on the Hurricanes, but I got them in 5. I think New Jersey somehow comes out game 3 on home ice and steals that game. And then they just, like you said, the pieces like Hughes being out and then obviously where they're at, and they just seem to be struggling. They lose game 4 and then game 5.
And it doesn't help with the whole Markstrom thing that happened. Cody Glass goes down. Luke Hughes gets hurt and Brendan Dillon's out. So just a lot of just very bad injury luck and just not a great start to the playoffs for the Devils. And who knows, maybe they'll make me look incredibly wrong and everything's just backwards now.
Watch it be Devils in 7.
If it happens, then kudos to them. But I look at Carolina's roster, and it's similar to that Washington-Montreal matchup where I like Stankoven that first game getting 2 goals and making sure he's an impact right from the get-go in playoffs. That was a huge deal. And here, like, we're in the situation of like maybe Carolina steamrolls the Eastern Conference. Because I wouldn't count them out against a team like Florida. It would be a very interesting matchup, that's for sure, but
I don't count them out against many teams.
Yep. And speaking of teams that I don't really like to count out, but I seem to have done in my playoff predictions, putting them in a wild card spot. Yes, the Winnipeg Jets are facing a wild card team, but President's Trophy winner versus 8th seed in the Western Conference now. The Winnipeg Jets and St. Louis Blues. And, well, games 1 and 2 are in the books. So at the time of my bracket going up, I said Jets in 6. I looked at it just from how good the Jets had played throughout the season. They had their moments of the season where it's adversity-wise. And I'm going to stick to Jets in 6 because I don't think it'll be a sweep. I think St. Louis is going to put up one hell of a fight in game 3 and 4 on home ice, maybe even steal a game. But this is a series where it's Central Division rivals with only one playoff series against each other, and that was 2019. Blues win in 6, and then they go on their Cinderella run to win the Stanley Cup. Winnipeg, having taken the games that they have, Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor being their big contributors. Scheifele has 2 goals, 3 assists. Connor has 2 goals and 2 assists. Like, you got guys who are right there for making sure they're all over the scoreboard. But it also has to do with defenses. Dylan Sandberg has been just out of this world games 1 and 2, making sure that players don't get into the Jets' defensive end. Like, zone entry denials, huge thing in playoffs. Sandberg's elevated his game for that. St. Louis, they are another team that hits hard. 58 hits in game 1. And then game 2, 29, but it was a lower hitting game. So I look at this series, Montgomery being an experienced coach, and St. Louis will battle. Like, they battled into that final wildcard spot, or one of the 2 wildcard spots. But you see the battle, you see the compete, you see what the Jets have done, and President's Trophy curse could be a thing. But I'm sticking to Winnipeg in 6 because, one, yes, 2-0 is a significant advantage to have, and I wrote about it today, 1 game at a time, but it also comes down to the fact of if you are the underdog, you come in with absolutely nothing to lose, but everything to win. And that's the situation St. Louis is in.
I got Winnipeg in 5.
Okay.
I think St. Louis, I mean, we talked about them a few weeks ago. They were the hottest team in hockey for quite a while. I mean, what was it, 12 straight? Was he actually might have been more than that, right?
It was 12 straight, and then they that streak died in Winnipeg.
Yeah. So to me, I think they just got hot a little too early, where now Winnipeg just looks like the better team, and St. Louis looks like, in a way, to me, they're a little gassed where they had the 12-game win streak to get them to the playoffs, where they weren't even a conversation before that. I mean, they were on the outside. I mean, I guess I should say they were talked about, but like, we didn't really think they had a chance to get in. And then they went on that win streak and they took over where they were the top wildcard seed before they fell off again. And I think that just gassed them out that now they've run into, honestly, one of the best teams in hockey this season. Obviously, with the President's Trophy, that should be not even bothered to be said. But I think that's Winnipeg just looks like the better team, that it's not even really going to be close. That it's Winnipeg in 5.
Yeah, and just if Binnington gets hot, that could be a difference maker for St. Louis because Winnipeg, yes, they got shooters. They had the best power play in the league, but you're also missing two of your top players in Nikolai Ehlers, who's out week to week with a foot injury, and Gabriel Velarde, who is now day to day. He was seen in a non-contact jersey skating with the team, but it's a matter of what his jersey color is tomorrow, and it's a matter of could he go? Could he play? And the 2-day breaks in between games could be a benefit to the Jets because they played yesterday, Monday, April 21st. You don't play again until Thursday. After Thursday's game 3, you don't play again until Sunday. And after Sunday, there's the break until Wednesday. So there's a lot of time to kind of rest and get some extra reps in if you need it.
So the best team gets better.
Yeah. And another series that we're going to see that's Dallas, Colorado, Chris. And I looked at this one as this is going to be a series where it's going to go back and forth. And the first 2 games showed just that. But I have Colorado in 7 because you have Landeskog just foaming at the mouth to get in. Gets 2 games in the AHL on a conditioning stint, and he looked pretty good. But what a massive, massive jolt it would put through the entire Avalanche lineup. Game 3, Landeskog makes his plays his first NHL game in over 3 years, and maybe he starts, even if he's on the 4th line, playing what he can manage. That's going to amp the entire team up. He's worked so hard to get to that point, and maybe Dallas is looking from the outside, and now they're kind of fighting from an underdog spot because Colorado's already a hard hitting and really good at beating you to pucks kind of team. Is you play the rush pretty well, and they like to bite teams. Colorado, I will say that they did it against Winnipeg round 1 last season. Maybe they'll do just that against Dallas, and that jolt might be what they need. But I'm going to stick to Avs in 7.
Well, I'm going to bring out the curse, and I'm going to say Stars in 7.
Oh, no.
I think, realistically, so obviously we're recording right now, and the series have already started. But after 2 games against his former team, Mikko Rantanen has not recorded a point yet. You know that's not going to stay that way for the rest of this series. You know at some point he's going to break out, and he's going to go off. That's just a matter of time. And they have, to me, realistically, one of the other top 3 goalies in all of hockey in Jake Ottinger. And he hasn't even played his best game in this series yet. So I think you're going to see him steal one. And like you said, it's back and forth, but I think at some point that the Stars are going to figure it out. They're going to get 2 in a row, get it to 7, and that's when they're going to win the series. Maybe they're down 3-2 and they win Game 6 and force Game 7. That's when they do it. But I think the Stars are going to take this one in 7. They just, to me, even with the addition of Landeskog, not having played in 3 years, coming back for this, yes, I agree. He's foaming at the mouth and he's ready to go. But playoff hockey is your first game back, or your first couple games back. It's like you said, it's a different environment. So I'm just a little hesitant on Colorado with adding him back to the lineup, that I think Dallas takes it in 7.
So here's where I disagree. And that's, I look at the Stars defense with Heiskanen out. Unless Heiskanen is able to get back around the same time Landeskog is injected, maybe that evens a playing field. But if Dallas they already have a bit of an issue defending against teams that push hard into the offensive zone. Colorado is one of those teams. I'm not budging off the Avs in 7, but maybe that's kind of the factor that does them in, because you don't got your top guy on the blue line. So,
which he's been skating, so there is a chance he's coming back relatively soon.
He is skating. That is good to know. But I just find it little hard to want to lean towards Dallas, and
Game
that's
7 will
why
be
I
fun.
chose Colorado.
We get to a game 7, that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll be chirping each
Colorado.
other though. We'll be chirping each other over text.
Yep.
Another series that I might take a lot of flack for this, but I think between Minnesota and Vegas, I'm going to say Minnesota in 6. I have that on my bracket too, solely because I look at Vegas and I look at Minnesota. You got Minnesota, like, you just got a bunch of top guys back into your lineup, and you have nothing to lose. Another team that has nothing to lose. Vegas, they have everything to lose in this case. Had a very rough exit last season against Dallas. And that was the season after they won the cup. So they'll be looking to compete, if not win the cup again this year. But Minnesota, they are a ruthless team to play against. And I watch them play. If they if you go into the corners with them, like, you get pounded into the boards, they fight for the puck, and a lot of their guys retrieve the pucks really well. Vegas, they have the star power. Don't get me wrong. They have the defense to withstand guys like Kaprizov and like the whole Minnesota roster. But I look at that goaltending, and that's a question mark for me. It's a question mark for me with Minnesota, but not as much as Vegas. Adin Hill, yes, great goalie, but Ilya Samsonov as your backup, another great goalie who he's earned his keep, but yeah, I don't know, Chris. I don't know.
I got Vegas in 6.
Okay,
Minnesota's got the talent to beat them, but Vegas is just deep. They're and Hill's done it before. Like, he did it. Was he the goalie when they won the cup, or was it Thompson? It was Hill. Okay,
Thompson
So,
just got traded to them this offseason.
okay,
Or no,
So-
Thompson just got traded this offseason. Pardon me.
okay.
I got that flipped.
But I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember who was the starter in the cup. I thought it was Hill.
Yeah.
So he's done it before. I mean, he knows what he's got to do. They obviously were bounced early last year, and I think that they're a better team on paper than Minnesota. That I have them in 6. I think Minnesota's going to take. I think we're going to talk about a 2-2 series heading back to Vegas for Game 5.
Honestly, I could also see that. The start times are also going to kill people because
Yep.
11 o'clock Eastern.
Yep, I just saw that as I pulled it up.
As maybe that gives one team an advantage, but 9 o'clock Central Standard, or no, 10 o'clock Central Standard start time, a little late. So
Yep.
finally, Chris, LA and Edmonton, 4th consecutive playoff series between both teams. Edmonton having just gone to the Stanley Cup final and losing in 7 games. I can see this finally being when LA breaks through, because they just look like a better rounded team after adding Kuzmenko. And that was the perfect trade deadline acquisition for them. You also got players like Tanner Chenot, who you added in the offseason. It just seems like this team's starting to click and recover from some previous trades that haven't been great. Not naming anything specific, but here they are. They're in a position to do something with what they have. You add a good goaltender. You have a lot of veteran guys up front. And Edmonton, being as banged up as they are, you don't got Ekholm. As Frederick could come back, Evander Kane could come back. There's so many what ifs around this roster, and a lot of people are calling it Edmonton's B team. So I'm saying Kings in 6 for this one, because Edmonton, with having some, if not the best players in the world on their team, they're bound to take a couple of games and make sure each game goes down to the wire. Look at last night's game. Down 4-0 at one point, and you lose 6-5. So it wasn't a complete and utter failure or a complete and utter blowout. So I got Kings in 6 for that reason.
Well, so Taylor Janot is actually out as of right now. I don't know if he's going to play for game 2. Frederick did return last night for Edmonton.
Okay.
But I got Kings in 7. I think
Okay.
these two teams don't like each other. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a bloodbath. But I agree with you. I think this is the year the Kings get over that schneid and get the monkey off their back against Edmonton. Take care of business. Kemper, did he struggle a little bit last night with those 4 goals to blow the lead? Yes, but I think he's been a good goalie this season that I think he'll figure it out and he'll get the Kings back on track and they'll force it to – honestly, like I said, I think they'll force it to 7, and I think that's when the Kings take it.
Yeah, and so, Chris, to recap everything, I said Tampa versus Toronto, whereas you said Florida versus Toronto. We both said Carolina versus Washington. That's the one we agreed on. And I have Colorado versus Winnipeg, where you have Dallas versus Winnipeg. I have Minnesota versus LA, where you have Vegas versus LA. So, what an interesting second round that could be. And I believe when we go to talk about what we think is going to happen for round 2 in a couple of weeks from now, which is going to be interesting, that's for sure. But maybe we're looking at a completely different picture. Maybe one of those teams like a Montreal or a New Jersey, maybe even a St. Louis slip in to round 2. So, Chris, like I said, it's always great to talk, and I will see you next week.
All right, see you next week.